So I am not the best reader. I mean, this is not exactly a secret. My sister, now she can read. She also does not come with this accent. She's my younger sister, and she does not sound like this. Anyway, um, yeah. So, and also, really, with time and with training, I have also lost a lot of my accent. It's not completely gone. And there are times when it's very strong, usually when I don't care or I'm tired or when something's funny or I'm under stress. But I can sound just like any other person walking around America. I just don't, and I often choose not to sound like that. This is who I was born, and I'm very proud of where I'm from. So, yeah. Anyway, just in case this is going to set you off, like, trigger warning, I do have an accent, and I read with an accent. So, okay. So that is out of the way. So, So, On Canvas and Shadow is a book that I wrote kind of like waiting for the end of my semester and going into the break between semesters. I was just kind of trying to wind down from writing a larger part of the series and doing some schoolwork. So that's when this came about. It also this story On Canvas and Shadow is also included in a an anthology called The Book by Candlelight, but I made it standalone so that it would be the sort of thing where if you already had the books, the anthology books in which the other two short stories in Book by Candlelight occur, you wouldn't necessarily have to buy a book by candlelight. You can always come over here and just grab On Canvas and Shadow, and it's like a paranormal-ish murder mystery with suspense, and Jessica Fletcher. Please be proud of me, Mama Jessica. Anyway, so it just was finished and published recently. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. And like I warned you, I am not the best reader. So just beware. All right. So, chapter 1 is Maxine's arrival. So, Maxine liked least the ragged section of the land along a nameless bog, a little before one confronted the ominous edifice of the Storm King Mountain. There was a thin ribbon of road with a wagon wheel ruts etched deep into its surface. Almost didn't get through that one. It wove through the nameless bog that the carriage was now approaching. She sat in the back with one other person, a gentleman, Dr. Claude Jolly, who had, since they'd left New York City, engaged her in conversations on such polite subjects as tree species, local history, candle making, roses, and magic. And that had been pleasant. Maxine didn't know much about any of those things. There wasn't much in her life that allowed frivolity, and she considered knowing each tree by its leaves, every street by its cornerstone, and not to test a wick till after the curing was well and truly completed, as signs that this man had ample time and luxury to do so. Mr. Claude Jolly didn't live a life with hands clasped. By the time the carriage reached the bog, the sun had set below the horizon and passed into the next world, and Dr. Jolly was asleep. This left Maxine in the darkness as the horses refused and whinnied. The cab abruptly stopped and gave a sudden jolt. Maxine waited with her eyes on her hands as they twisted in her lap. Outside, on the narrow, damp stretch of land between the swamp water and the wagon wheels, the driver appeared. He opened the door to the night air and looked in. I'm sorry, sorry. That was me. I'm sorry, Dr. Jolly, sir. The horses are having a bit of a problem with the road ahead. On the seat across from her, Dr. Jolly was blinking away. Goodness, man, is the road washed out? Nothing I can see by torch, sir, the driver replied. Then what stopped them? Dr. Jolly was peeved by his disturbed sleep and asked, Can't you get them going? They argued about the delay while Maxine slid across to the cold side of the carriage seat. She exhaled softly at the window, and her breath condensed in the air most alarmingly. It was early autumn. She reached a tentative hand and pulled the latch down, then opened the door. Thick mist fell, the puddle over her shoes and onto the carriage floor. It was bracing. Slowly, Maxine pulled herself out, which was not simple, seeing as she was wearing all the skirts she owned, and balanced half in, half out of the wagon, using the step. Finally, she raised her chin to look at the oak and hemlock landscape. The horses were on a bit of a turn, and she could see what had held them up quite clearly. What she saw made the conversation behind her, which was becoming rather heated, fall away like an autumn crown of leaves. Maxine shuddered. By the horses stood two drowned souls, as pale as webs under the quarter moon, moths circling inside their rotted rib cages, eyes and tongues lolling, and she turned her head away from them in favor of the moon's reflections on the wheel wells. But looking away from the dead invited disaster. Almost at once she could see the muck-fouled, rotted blaze that had been dangling from the pair of them. She sucked in a breath and made a quiet note. Nothing. On the next exhalations, though, a voice rather deeper than hers came out as she exhaled, and the words sounded something like off with you, both of you. The rotted lace faded into nothing in the wheel ruts. The horses stilled in the watery moonlight. Maxine felt cold right through all the layers of her dress, and she shuddered and slumped into her seat. When the driver and Dr. Jolly growl with the driver and Dr. Jolly growling at one another, she shut the door to the carriage loudly, but it made no difference. She wound up slumped with the arms around herself until the carriage man went angrily back to his perch and found his horses fully restored. So that's the first, I think, 2 pages, 2 pages and a little bit, maybe a quarter, not quite. Um, yes, this is going to be a suspense-filled murder mystery. But it does clearly have paranormal and ghostly tones to it. I mean, we have Maxine arriving, going through a swampland, um, with a narrow road through the bog, and the wheel ruts are deep into the land, the very small spits of land that she's crossing these deep pools in, so deep that they themselves are full of bog water. And that's when she sees them, right? That's when the horses see them too, and it stops everything cold. Um, Dead cold. But basically, there is a strong paranormal sort of element to this, very ghostly. So if you like that kind of thing in your reading, that's not the only time that she bumps up against the world on the other side. So yeah, you might want to consider it. It is currently published on Amazon. I don't have it wide yet. No, it is not in KU. It is sitting there. I just published it, and now I'm back in my semester. There's not much I can do with it at this point. But it's Tracy Eyre. That's Eire, and the title is On Canvas in Shadow. Sorry for my reading. I'm definitely not the best. I mean, I can easily trip up over words. So, but thanks for sticking with me through it. I appreciate it.